Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to yet again another fantastic indie creator interview. It's your Cape Crusader, Cody, and we are celebrating our 200th indie comic interview. Holy crap. We're here with Andy J. Clarke, and we are breaking down Flux. Before we begin, I'd like to give a big shout out to my boys over at We Have Issues. They are currently going through some problems with Hurricane Ian, and they are beginning to post regularly on their YouTube. Please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, most importantly, to help that algorithm boost over on their channel. So when they start pumping out these episodes, they're getting hit with a lot of views and a lot of love. Much love to those guys over there. Thank you all for watching, and let's get this party started. So Andy, welcome to the stream. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm good, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are here to break down the latest issue of Flux, issue number 6. We actually have some of those images to our left. Before we dive into that, though, in any of the Flux history, let's begin with who you are and how you got into creating comics.
Well, I'm Andy J. Clarke, as already said. I'm working on my first comic series, Flux. I've been working on it for about 4 years now. If you'd asked me 6 years ago what I'd be doing now, I would never have said comics. I know since my late teens up until my mid 30s, pursuing a music career, but when that kind of fell by the wayside, I was looking for somewhere else to channel my creative energy, and I just had this story rattling around in the back of my head for about 10 years. I decided this is the time to do it. Let's pick up the old art equipment and give making a comic a go.
So what type of instrument were you playing when you did music?
I was a multi-instrumentalist. The band I was in, I was mainly the main driving force of the band. All the albums that were released, I was pretty much doing everything solo in my little home studio.
Dude,
and then,
let's go.
You guys to help me out to play the stuff live that I was doing. But I'm a guitarist and vocalist.
Yeah, I used to do vocals. I was like in a death metal band though, so it was like the type of vocals you would not be able to understand. And then slowly transitioned to guitar, and as soon as I got out of music, I literally started getting into interviewing comic creators. So it's kind of funny that we both came from a music background into comics. So you're the writer and the artist of this?
I certainly am, yeah. I've the huge mistake of trying to do everything myself.
It's like your drive for the music went straight into comics. I love it. So what's that creative process look like for you when you first started creating this book?
The process, I will admit, is entirely erratic. If a pro were to watch me work, they would rip the hair out of the way that a lot of the time, because I'm not having to communicate my writing to another artist or anything, I do everything very brief bullet points, and then I do a lot of the fleshing out sort of on the fly. I'm what they call a seat of the pantser when it comes to the creative process a lot of the time. But I have this big epic story, which again, I'm breaking all the rules of, they always say for your first comic, don't try and do a big, massive, multi-issue series. And that's exactly what I'm doing for my first comic. I thought to myself, I either do that or I never do it. I either have to commit or just, it's either all in or nothing.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, you can go ahead.
I have my main overarching plot bullet pointed out in very brief bullet points, and then I just take each of those bullet points. I just work on a story beat at a time and just work in those little chunks and just take it. Because I think if I thought about it as the big whole, I just get overwhelmed by it. So it's just breaking it down into those little chunks and telling those little mini stories within the big story.
So, I mean, coming from a background that didn't have anything to do with comics, how did you learn how to create comics as an artist? Because that's a thing in itself, right? You could do art and be a really good artist, but that doesn't necessarily translate to being able to create a comic.
Well, no. Before I was into the music, art was very much a big part of my life. Where all through school, art was always my biggest subject at school. Is the only one that I could really, commit myself to, that had any drive or motivation to do. And I was always drawing and painting as a kid, but then when the music came in, I just stopped doing it. And then when the music ended, I just thought, I used to do all that years ago. I'm going to have to relearn a few things, start from scratch. But I thought if I'm starting from scratch, I'll try and learn digital art. Because when I first started, I had no intention of doing a comic. I just wanted to do digital art because I'm a big gamer. I play a lot of tabletop games like Magic the Gathering.
Ooh,
games,
let's go.
Dungeons and Dragons. And I realized a lot of the artwork in these games, the artwork on the cards in Magic, so much of it is done digitally. And I thought, I want to give that a go. And it was from that I started making a comic, because making a comic requires you to draw over and over again. So that was going to be my practice. So I started making Flux just as an exercise to get the skills to do digital art. And it was from there I thought, actually, I could commit to this and make this a thing, actually put it out there.
Man, if you're playing Magic the Gathering, you can commit to anything. Like Magic the Gathering in itself, like, whew, it's a fun game to play, but outside of learning just the meta and like everything that goes into it, like it is expensive. It is not cheap to get into it with a competitive deck.
It really isn't, and I'm what many refer to as a casual tryhard.
Yeah.
I like to enter tournaments. I like to, enter the big, Grand Prix and things. But I've never really committed to myself to the point where this is my everything. That I have to put my finance into it. I have to get those cards. I just play it for the fun of it and hope to do well.
So give us a little bit about Flux. I know this kind of started as like an exercise for you to get better with creating digital art, but as far as the story goes, like what does the concept look like?
It's I've referred to it on occasion as sort of a love letter to the sci-fi that I grew up on through the 80s and 90s and right up until today. So right from Star Wars through to, Star Trek, Blade Runner, Terminator, Aliens, all that sort of stuff of the 90s. And then some of the more recent stuff like The Expanse and Altered Carbon. It's very much in that vein of that. I hesitate to use the word dystopian, but that almost not quite cyberpunk, but that gritty future that you have in stories like Blade Runner and Altered Carbon, that sort of like dark sci-fi, dark gritty sci-fi. So I actually started writing Flux as a novel many years ago as sort of a sideline whilst I was still playing in the band. I was just like, I'm going to try writing a novel because I've had this idea for a sci-fi story. You
are a busy person.
It says in my Twitter handle that I'm a man with too many hobbies. That's my I have no time for anything, and that in the day job as well. But yeah, I started writing a novel and I realized I was a terrible novelist. I can picture scenes in my head, but I couldn't put them into words. And then, I abandoned that, chucked it away. And then 10, maybe nearly 15 years later, I'm like, let's make a comic. And that story I was trying to tell years ago as a novel, let's make it as a comic. Because back then, I thought to myself, this would be better as a comic, but I didn't think comics were something that was within my grasp. I didn't realize the technology was so easily accessible. Like, I managed to get my first art tablet from my PC for next to nothing, and I hadn't realized it was that accessible and that easy to get into. And like also now with services like Global Comics and formerly Comixology, which is now been absorbed by Amazon Kindle, it's so easy now that if you've got a story and you can get it out there, there's so many platforms you can get a comic out there quite easily. So I decided now's the time to do it. I'm not all that time I was putting into the band, into the music, that's free time now. So let's direct that elsewhere and make some sci-fi.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it can't be all like daisy and roses, though. Like, what sort of like challenges did you work through? I mean, coming from not having any idea how to create comics, I'm sure there was like some trouble along the way.
Oh, definitely. I mean, and it's struggles that I still, find even now, 4 years after starting it, it's firstly finding that market and getting people to actually see your book and see your comic and actually, getting people to actually part with the money for it, because that's a big ask for people. It's like I've tabled at a few Comic Cons and comic fairs now, and it's a big ask to get someone to come to your table or come to your website and hand over their hard-earned money for something that they don't know if it's going to be any good or not. That's a bit of a gamble for them. Yeah, they conflict at the table. So it's just that promotional marketing side of it that is the hardest I find. But on the creative side, it's the hardest. The biggest challenge is the time, finding the time for it all, especially when I'm having to work full time, use my weekends just for the comics. So it does feel at times like you're doing two jobs,
Yeah.
Where's the free time going? But it's all about managing your own expectations. I come up with these little pearls of wisdom that I have to repeat to myself at times. That, when I'm feeling under pressure with the comic, I have to realize where that pressure is coming from. Is it the fact that there are people banging on my door saying, hey, where's the next issue? I want the next issue. Or is it just me putting pressure on myself? And when
that's such an awesome way to look at it. Like, I'm not trying to interrupt you, but like the way you're able to break your mindset and kind of look at it from outside of the box is like that's something I strive to do, because it's hard for me. Like I'll be late at night and I'll be like feeling like stressed out and tired. I'm like, well, is it because it's like 3 a.m. and I should be sleeping, or is it because like I feel pressure to push this through to get it out so people aren't waiting? Like, and then you're able to like self-remove yourself from that and be like, okay, well, what is the underlying issue of this? That is like awesome, Andy. Like, holy crap, man.
I mean, I still fall into those holes in the ground of getting overwhelmed by it and feeling that stress and pressure. But when I do that, I just do have to say to myself, is where is that pressure coming from? It's I feel that I'm letting people down at times because I do have a Patreon. There are people that are giving money to me monthly on the back of this comic, and on the basis that they get the rewards, that they get the comic. And when I first set out, I was trying to release an issue every 3 months, which at first I thought, yeah, I could do that. And then I realized the reality of it, it's just not doable. So Chapter 5, Issue 5 came out in April of this year. And we're over 6 months later now, and I haven't got Chapter 6 out yet. I'm only halfway done finishing it. But when I assess it, there isn't actually anyone screaming at me to say, hey, where's the next chapter? There are people saying, oh, how's it coming? How's it coming along? But they're not like, screaming down my ear saying, where is it? So when I feel that pressure, I realize it's actually just me putting myself under pressure, because I'm, I feel that it's me feeling I should have that next issue to my audience, when actually they're happy to wait for it. They're happy to wait and get a quality product rather than me rush it out and get it to them in an arbitrary time.
Yeah. And I mean, as a consumer, I would much rather read something that is polished. I'm a big gamer myself, and that's like always like my golden rule is like, don't rush the game. Delay this game as much as you need to. I would rather play this game when it is finished. You were talking about Cyberpunk earlier. When Cyberpunk dropped day one on my PS5, it was dropping, breaking every other second. I beat the game, and during the end credits, the game froze, broke, and ended. And I was like, and the same thing translates to comics, except comics don't get comics do not get updates, right? Unless it's a digital format, and then or if you redraw the comic. So it's like you might as well just wait to have that finished polished look instead of rush it.
Well, again, looking externally from me, the series that inspired me to actually start a comic was Saga by Brian K. Vaughan. That was this book I was reading that made me think, right, I'm going to make a comic. That was the one that inspired me to do it. And I've been waiting, a couple of years now since the last Saga volume came out, and it's just been released in trade paperback this week. And I thought to myself, yeah, I would have loved to have it a year, 2 years ago. Actually, it's not hurt me to wait that little bit longer. And it's the same, I can, if they can take the time with that, I can take the time with mine. They've got a much bigger audience than I have. So if they can take the time like they have, then I can take the time with these things.
Yeah, that whole pressure is something in itself, right? The pressure to get this out. I know in the webtoon community, I interview a lot of people from that area, and they are so pressured to keep uploads, keep weekly uploads, keep daily uploads, and it's you hear how set, like they put their whole lives on it, and they get so stressed and burnt out from it. And like, that's the biggest thing, right? Is like burning out. Like that destroys just everything. And like, it's inevitable to burn out if you are pushing yourself to your limits every single day.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And it's just taking the time out from it, because I've had, months at a time where I've done nothing in my free time but work on the comic. And I have gotten to that point of burning out where it's just been making me miserable. And when you do let yourself burn out like that, you forget why you're making the comic to start with. It stops being fun. You're doing it because you feel you have to, not because you want to. So it's just important to just take those time, because I'm a bit like I play the tabletop games, but I love my video games as well. So it's just important to take that time to say, actually, Spider-Man's just been released on PC. I'll take a break from the comic.
Have you been playing that?
I just finished sort of the main story the other week.
It's so good, dude.
Game. And I've been waiting because I don't have a PlayStation. I nearly bought a PlayStation just for that game. But I thought, no, they've done it with Horizon Zero Dawn. They released that on PC eventually. Spider-Man Welcome to PC, and it finally happened this year, and I was so happy. It was such a good game.
Dude, so you beat it. When he went up against the Sinister Six, that like, I don't think any movie has reached how hyped that game got, dude. That was such a climatic showdown, right? Like,
definitely.
Holy crap. So let's go ahead. I think right now would be a perfect segue. Let's pull up the first couple pages of this awesome comic on Global Comics and see what the hype's all about. Some of the exclusive pages from the latest issue. So that's a sneak peek for you guys. So when you said you're about halfway done with that, or what's the progress looking like with the newest one?
This morning, literally just this morning, I finished the art on page 13. Again, my process being as erratic as it is, whereas most creators would do all the pencils first, then all the inks, and then all the colors, and just do the whole book from start to finish, one step at a time. I do sometimes do the entire art of a single page before moving on to sometimes I'll do several pages. It's just all over the place. So I was actually up quite late last night because I thought I'll just start sketching, ended up drawing half of the page, and then finished it this morning. So yeah, so 13 out of what will roughly be about 24, 25 pages.
Let's go. Hey, sometimes when you get in that groove, it's hard to break away, right? Like, you get in that groove and you got to write it out. So we are looking at the cover. Give us some of the inspiration for this cover. This looks like the silhouette of a character with the galaxy in the background. Yeah, it was. I always struggle with covers. The book is like, how much does it have to reflect what's inside the book? So I did a bit of art of one of the main characters. My Taran is our lead character in this, and I wasn't 100% happy with the art that I'd done, but I was just playing with some filters and things, and I was going to put that as that starscape as a background behind this art, but accidentally put it as a mask over the top of the art, and I got that silhouette with the stars, and I thought, oh, I quite like that. That works quite nice. That's such an awesome, like, happy little mistake, right? I think 50% of what I do is happy mistakes. So let's go ahead. Is this is the main character then, or yes, the cover? I originally did for the cover, and decided it was better as like inside cover and do the silhouette for the main cover. So give us a little bit about what's happening on this first page, though. Okay, so the opening of the book is even though the main story is set about 500 years from now, the opening of the story actually starts in a much more recent future, maybe 10, 15 years from now. Mm-hmm. And our secondary lead character, the fellow that you see in Ian Author, has just been told that he's dying and only has 6 months to live. Wow, that would be such a heavy weight on your shoulders, right? So, without it being too much of a spoiler, as you'll see in the next couple of pages, he gets told that he's only got 6 months left to live, but he's given this way to maybe cheat death. Mm-hmm. And it's basically cryogenics. He's been told he can have himself preserved, and then when a cure is found, they can wake him up and apply the cure, but they don't know how long that will be. So he's going to have himself cryogenically frozen, and then
hope that a cure is found for his illness that he has. And without being, it's not. I mean, it's quite evident what may happen, but what essentially happens is he wakes up a lot longer and much further in the future than he had intended.
Oh no. So what was some of your inspiration for that? I'm kind of maybe picking up on a little bit of a Futurama.
Yeah, well, basically the main premise of the story is Earth has been abandoned. The reason he is ill and has this illness is because Earth has become too toxic and uninhabitable. So he's basically at this period in time when they're starting to realize things have gotten so bad that it's just not habitable anymore. So Earth is abandoned, and everyone now lives 500 years from now. Everyone lives either in orbit of Earth or spread out through the solar system. And he's going to wake up 500 years later, and he's trapped on Earth. He's the last man.
So, I mean, wow, like that's something that could very well happen, though, too, with the way we are treating our planet and polluting it. Like, it very well could become something like that hundreds of years from now.
This is it, and what I like with sci-fi and what I like to play with sci-fi is it can take real-world concepts, but then just push them to the nth degree. Like, one of the things like with scientific concepts, or like with Star Wars, like we all know that a planet like Earth, it has many different climates, different ecosystems, etc. But then you get science fiction like Star Wars, where you have a planet that's entirely desert or entirely ice. It's basically taking a real world concept and saying, what if we take something that is normally 20%, get 100%? So it's taking those real world concepts and just pushing them. What would be the worst case scenario of this? What would be the best scenario of this? So it's like, you know, there's a very much a consciousness now about the environment, about where we are in the world now. So what is the worst case scenario that could come from that? And, you know, there's disaster movies about it all over the place, but I just like the idea that it's not a big, you know, cataclysmic disaster that all happens all at once. It's just a gradual, we'll just abandon it, we'll just, you know, get on our spaceships and just leave it to be someone else's problem.
It's like, and imagine waking up from being frozen and no one being there. So give us a little bit about chapter 2. I know you said at some point you intend to make issue 1 free, or parts of it more accessible.
It will be entirely free on Global Comics very shortly for anyone that has a Global Comics account. And then the following chapters 2, 3, 4, and 5, they are available to either read online with your subscription, but now Global Comics has added the awesome feature that you can actually just buy titles and download them as PDFs, so they're all available to do that. And there's also the collected volume 1 as well that collects all 5 chapters into one and available.
That's so awesome. That is so awesome, Andy. I appreciate you coming on here, breaking this down. What's next for you, though? Are you going to continue working on Flux as a whole, or do you have any other projects up your sleeve?
I have ideas that I want to start on. Nothing really fully realized yet, to the point that I can actually say what those plans are. I'm just in that position now where I'm trying to decide if I want to wait till Flux is finished before I start on anything new, if I want to start and do them alongside each other, because Flux is quite an epic story that's that deals with, you know, the reasons why Earth has been abandoned, because the official line that people believe is going to turn out as a big conspiracy and cover up.
Ooh, I love stories like that.
The story, that's the bigger story that Flux is going to follow in the long term. So, but it's going to be a big story, and it's a big commitment. So it's whether I want to start other projects on the side or just put 100% focus into Flux.
Oh, absolutely. So before we wrap things up completely, Andy, I always love asking people I have on the show one question in particular, because as much as this is a podcast where we really promote you and your book, I always really try to throw a nice little bone to anyone who might be new to the scene, or maybe they're experienced but they're still struggling. So with that being said, for anyone who's out there and maybe they're just having trouble getting going with their project, as someone who, you know, came from not having a background in comics, but came and conquered, and now you're working on what, issue 6, and just moving forward with it. Like, what advice would you offer them just to get the motivation to get going with their project?
There's a couple of things I would say. Firstly, I think the first thing you have to decide on is, when you set out, decide exactly what you want to achieve. Are you happy just being an independent comic creator? Is your end goal to eventually become a writer or artist for like one of the big two? What is do you want to be at this end of the scale or this end? What are you to do? And if you have that plan from the beginning, you can then follow the right channels and go from there, and do what you need to hit your goals. Just having that clear plan from the start. But the main advice I give to people is, if you have a story and you have belief in that story, and you feel you have a story that's worth telling, just go for it. Do what you have to. If you're a writer and you only want to write it, get involved in the social media comic communities. Twitter's great. I mean, that's where I discovered yourself. It's where I discovered the guys from We Have Issues, as well as so many other comic creators, podcasts and channels that just want to support the comic communities, and they just are so helpful. If you have any questions about it, you can go on Twitter. As much as Twitter can be a garbage fire at times, there's so much good there. If you look in the right places, there are people that will happily give you all the help you want. But I think the biggest learning curve I ever had is to study other people's work, but don't compare yourself to it. Definitely, you need to study other people's work, but you have to realize, just because you're doing something differently from them doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. It doesn't mean that your work is bad. I actually referred to this as my eyebrow epiphany, because I went through a whole obsessive period a few years ago where I thought I was drawing eyebrows wrong, because I realized none of the comics drew eyebrows the way that I draw eyebrows. But then I realized that's not that I'm doing it wrong, it's just that I'm doing it my way.
Yeah.
So it's just settling on your style and just, having that self-reflection, that self-analysis to realize, what you're doing differently that's good and what you need to actually improve on. Because sometimes you'll be looking at your own work and thinking this is terrible, when actually it's not terrible, it's just how you do it. You're comparing yourself to other people too much.
We could be our own worst self-critics, right? Like, there's so much stuff, like when I'm editing, I'm listening to my voice, I'm like, dude, I hate myself. But like, 195, because I've had some returning guests, 195 people have wanted to come onto the show. What, 10 people have wanted to come back. So like, it's, you got to learn to squash that inner voice and, stuff it down, lock it up, and throw away the key. Andy, thank you so much for stopping by. This has been such an awesome sit down. Everyone watching, here is the link to buy this book from Andy's website. Be sure to check it out. If you're unable to buy it, just simply retweeting that. Put that link on Facebook, put that link on Twitter, get it out there. Help Andy get this book in as many people's hands as possible. Once again, everybody, I'd like to give a special shout out to the boys over at We Have Issues. Be sure to hit up their channel, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. They're going to be pumping out some awesome content, and you definitely don't want to miss it. That being said, it's an awesome, lovely Saturday evening for you, Saturday day for me. We are going to be heading off, but most importantly, guys, keep it geekly.